Okay, time for another one of these. I was asked on the Discord whether or not I think learning iRacing is more akin to a linear progression or a line just going like that, or if it's more stair steppy. Um, and I think the answer lies somewhere in between. As with most things, it is not cut and dry. For me, starting out, the first thing I had to learn was to kind of keep the car on the track, and that was a fairly linear progression, just learning how to drive in the Mazda and keep the car going, not off track. That didn't take long, and very quickly we had to work on other skills, avoiding wrecks and that kind of stuff, which again was a fairly linear progression. But where we're at now, trying to improve things, the issue comes in that there's so many skills that we're trying to accomplish at the same time. And within those skills, there's subsets of other skills going on too. So let's try and break this down just a little bit here. There's the one thing that we're always looking for, right, which is outright pace, going faster. Now that in and of itself, for me, tends to be it goes week by week, and it tends to just kind of like Summit Point at the end of last season was a good example where pretty much every day we would get a little we go kind of along on a line, and then I get to sleep, and then we'd hit a bump because the brain processes what you've learned overnight, and then we'd go and kind of keep that same progression, then boop, and then a little further, sleep again, a little faster, or this should be going down, but you get the point. And that's the way it kind of goes a lot of times, especially when it's a new track that I've not done before. We'll start out at the beginning of the week with a relatively, well, we're always relatively slow, but a slow time for us, and then as the week progresses, we'll get faster and faster, and it usually happens in those overnight time periods, or at least that's the way it was. I feel as though now I've kind of hit a wall, or a step if you prefer, and that is usually kind of when I start hitting those plateaus is kind of why I don't progress beyond the beginner stage of most skills I decide to take up. But we're gonna push past, because we've decided to devote at least a year to trying to learn this, and I think that's gonna push us a little farther than just, well, we'll still be beginners by the time this is over, because the really good people have dedicated their lives to this thing. But we're gonna see how far we can take this. But the thing is, when we're talking about outright speed here, there's so many things to consider other than just going fast. There's like following a good line, there's your footwork, your braking and throttle inputs, and how smoothly and appropriately you can apply them. There's finding your braking points, which goes along with the lines, but it's a separate thing. And those all contribute to going fast. I'm sure there's more that I don't even know about, and that's probably holding me back not knowing those things. But those separate skills don't progress evenly either. So you'll have, like, say you're getting your lines down for a track, and those will go, and then those will start progressing, and then you'll hit a plateau with that, and that will kind of even out, and then you'll figure out a little bit better line, and then that'll even out again, and so on. But then at the same time, you're also learning your braking points and what have you. So that'll go, maybe start here, and we'll kind of come, you're not really adjusting, but then you adjust some of those, and that'll go up, and then they're also affecting each other at the same time. So it's really kind of confusing as to how this goes. And I guess you just, if you want to figure out how linear or not the learning is here, that you could take the averages of all those. I'm sure there's a mathematical way to do this, and none of what I'm saying here is at all scientific. This is just personal experience that I'm talking from. And then, of course, aside from just outright pace, because we're not just trying to set time trials here, we're trying to race against other human beings, we've also got other skills that we have to learn too, which progress at a different rate, because you can only practice those skills when you're in the situations where they apply. Passing folks, I spent the longest time, if you go back to the older Get Good videos, saying how I need to learn how to, well, first it was just driving near other cars, like being comfortable being near other cars was a skill I had to learn, and that took a while, because for the longest time, especially like before Project Get Good started, when we were just doing the Mazda the previous season, I would kind of freak out when I was near anybody, because I was hardly ever near anybody. I was way at the back of the pack, lucky to stay on the lead lap. And now that we've practiced this TCR so much and we've gotten comfortable in it, we started to have to, like, we were comfortable being around other cars, then we had to learn how to overtake. And that's a skill that we're still working on, but given more opportunities to do it, like we especially focused on it that week at that past week at Tsukuba, where we'd get knocked out of the race pretty early on, and we'd end up hitting slower traffic, and we got some practice overtaking folks that we were faster than. Now, being able to overtake folks that are around the same pace as us is something that we're going to have to learn too, hopefully sooner rather than later, but you know, it'll happen. So we've covered a couple skills so far: outright pace, overtaking and driving near other cars, handling other drivers, we'll call it that. And then like stuff that we haven't even started to cover yet: tire conservation, pit strategy, fuel conservation, all that kind of stuff. We haven't had to worry about that yet because we haven't run races really long enough to worry about that. I'm sure it'll all come up when we're doing the Nürburgring 24, but and we've discussed that in our team, some of that strategy already. But all of that's going to be a whole different set of skills. That's going to come up when we start doing these longer races. When we do the GT3s, those 40-minute races usually require a pit stop. I don't know if you can run your strategy well enough to avoid it, but we're just not there yet to worry about that. And there's so many different aspects to this thing that I hardly think you can narrow it down to one thing. When you look at the different subsets of skills, I think it is very much one of those plateau kind of things. But when you kind of bunch them all together, it becomes more linear, and it can get kind of frustrating when you start to see
the gap in front is increasing. It's now 5.0 seconds.
When it's focused, when the stuff that you experience is focused on something that you've not been progressing or practicing as much, it can get a little frustrating. But you just have to kind of look back at where you've come from and see that you've made progress, because this is like we've been saying, it's a long-term thing. You're not going to get better overnight. It's going to take a while to see the results of your efforts, as with any skill development. And in other skills, the way that I've handled the plateaus is just to keep working at it. There's two strategies: keep going at it, just keep hammering at what you're doing, and eventually something will change. You'll stumble upon some new aspect, and it'll click, and you'll hit the next tip up towards the next plateau that you're gonna hit. The other option is to look at where you're hitting your plateau and change the way you practice. So I think one of the ways that I'm handling that right now is
Okay, Josh, 10 minutes to
I
go.
don't
That's 10 minutes left.
see a huge progression in my TCR skills at the moment. It doesn't feel like we're having nearly the same progression as we were 5 months ago, 6 months ago, whenever we started this thing. It's gone up. It was going up rather quickly, and it's leveling off. So it's not quite a stair step. It's more a hill for another. It's not a plateau. It's a hill. For another geographical feature there for you. But you know, we're gonna try and change it up by going to the GT3 cars. One, I think and it has been pointed out to me that before the end of Project Get Good, I should be driving some rear-wheel drive cars. I agree. And two, I think changing it up will maybe, hopefully, kind of help progress general driving ability. We'll see how it goes. As always, if you've got another topic that you'd like us to discuss, hit us down in the comments below or head on over to the Discord. Link will be down in the description. If you've got your own opinions on how these things work, make sure to leave your comment below. There's a myriad of opinions out there on this topic. As always, I've said as always twice, but as always, hit the like and subscribe buttons. Dislike if you didn't like it, and head on over to twitch.tv/thepiltdownman to follow along with our progression live. Till next time, bye.